Welcome everybody to part 1 of the Neurotrauma add-on tutorial series, and for everyone returning from my Neurotrauma tutorial series, welcome back to part 6. Today I'll be covering and explaining NT Surgery Plus. I use a specific version called Curly's NT Surgery Plus Ultra because I found it to have the best compatibility with the Neurotrauma Fort version I use, so I recommend it if you're using the Neurotrauma Fort version of Neurotrauma. However, most versions of NT Surgery Plus should work. Links will be provided in the description. Also keep in mind that recently, I've discovered defibrillators to be less successful when dealing with cardiac arrest. I don't know if this is intended, a bug, or a compatibility issue, but if your defibrillator isn't working, ensure you have the medical skill to use CPR, or you're in a safe place to use the auto pulse. So that out of the way, let's get started. First thing to understand is sterility. I have previously touched on this topic in my previous tutorials, but I'll try to cover everything again here and in greater detail. Sterility refers to the state of how sterile something is. Sterile, in super simple terms, means clean and free of microorganisms. So when you're doing a surgery, sterility is the number one thing to take into consideration. Every wound and opening has the potential to be infected depending on the environment, and if there's no sterility where you're working, there's a 10% chance every 2 seconds that your patient will get sepsis. So let's go over steps you can take to make your environment as sterile as possible. The number one thing in your power is to utilize your trusty surgeon outfit and your surgical mask you can see I'm currently wearing. Once a surgeon joins a crew, you should be given and start with this outfit. Both pieces of this uniform reduce the chance of infection when nearby the patient, so it's the best thing to wear when operating. Keep in mind that the chance of your patient getting an infection due to someone having dirty clothes or armor is not just limited to you. Please inform your crew when starting an operation to not enter your medbay, as anyone who's not sterile can easily infect your patient if they're nearby. Now the next thing you can do is purchase surgical drapes. When beginning an operation, ensure that your patient's armor is removed and their suit is removed if they have one, given there's no water or a chance of attack in your operating room, and put the drapes on your patient's armor slot. This will massively reduce the chance of your patients getting an infection with 100 sterility points. This item is most useful after a crewmate has been attacked and invasive surgery is required, or you're performing an organ or limb transplant. Use this whenever possible if there's no current threats and you have time to safely perform a surgery. The next step you can take is applying the ointment affliction to the operation site. This can be done with antiseptic spray or antibiotic ointment. Antiseptic spray providing 20% and antibiotic ointment providing 100% of the ointment affliction. As long as the ointment affliction is on a limb you're operating on, 50 points of sterility will be added. Next, having surgical skill, which I'll explain more in the next part. You'll gain sterility from your surgical skill equal to the simple equation 10 plus your surgery skill divided by 5. So if you have 100 skill, you should, by default, have 30 points of sterility. Finally is the ultrasonic cleaner perk, which provides 30 sterility points flat. Some other things to note is to be sure you clean the walls with the sprayer if there's any blood, vomit, or other stain on the walls. Be sure there's no corpses in your room, and as I said before, no intrusions from other teammates unless it's another surgeon. If surgical drapes are not an option, at least ensure you're wearing your surgical clothes and are applying ointment to the limb you're operating on, as well as any open wound such as lacerations, bites, gunshot wounds, traumatic amputations, third-degree burns, or anything that's a break in the skin. Remember to be sure your operation takes place on or in front of your operation table, and be sure your environment is sterile. Otherwise, sepsis will develop, and you'll have to spend antibiotics to get rid of it, and this will cause unnecessary damage to your patient's organ health. So take sterility seriously. It truly is life or death in some situations, especially if your patient is already suffering organ damage, and remember to always prescribe thiamine with your antibiotics. Now for the fun part, neurotrauma skills and the skill tree with NT Surgery Plus. You are treated to the surgeon class option with its own skills and its own skill tree. The skill surgery functions like other skills. The higher your skill number, the less likely you are to make errors when performing operations, such as a less chance to accidentally just cause bleeding instead of opening the skin with a scalpel, causing extreme bleeding during limb transplants, or attempting to extract organs. and as I mentioned before, the higher your surgery skill, the less likely for your patient to become infected during a surgery. You gain surgery skill by performing surgeries and using neurotrauma items such as drainages or fixing arteries, so on and so forth. In short, the higher your surgery skill, the smoother operations will go and with less chance of infection. You can instantly raise your surgery skill and medical skill by reading the book Medical Misconduct, which can be purchased at outposts from the medical merchant, or got it free from the perk Fine Bedside Manner at the end of every round. More on this later. Next is a skill tree. I won't be explaining what every single skill does, as you can read each skill on the Steam page of MT Surgery Plus provided in the description, but I will go over the ones I recommend to go for first. Adrenaline Pump is the first skill you should get. It allows you to drag bodies at full speed, similar to one of the first medic perks, which is a must-have for any surgeon. It also adds a run speed proportional to 10% of your surgical skill. Next, I recommend Preparation Package. It's a great way to get a small restock of simple materials with a free opium, 3 sutures, and 1 O- blood. It's not a lot per round, but they're important materials, as you should know, and you get them at the start of every round after the perk is gained. Next, I recommend Under Pressure. It causes 50% blood loss, organ damage, and neurotrauma resistance to all crewmates around you, making it an amazing tool for keeping your patient healthier during an operation. Trust me, it's a lifesaver. Literally. After this, you should get Rapid Deployment. It raises your run speed by 25% of your surgery skill, and also increases your swim speed by 40%. This is a wonderful tool for retrieving patients if it comes down to it, and making a mad dash for your operation room if you're carrying an unconscious or seriously injured crewmate. Next, I recommend Ultrasonic Cleaner. It has 30 points of sterility and makes endovascular balloons and drainages non-consumable, which is super nice. Next, you want to get the Fish Are Specimens Not Food perk. It's not useful for surgeries, but it's required to unlock Fine Bedside Manner. This is the single most important perk. This is this is the single most important perk for the entire surgeon class. It makes patients near you heal faster, and twice that speed if your patient is laying down. Also, if you finish a round without anyone dying, you get 30% extra XP, which is nice. As I said before, you get a free medical misconduct book at the end of every round, which is super useful. Next, I recommend getting either of the next 2 perks in the field surgeon tree. Either 2 perks that come after that, so you can unlock Don't Die on Me Soldier. It causes patients around you to be unable to die, so you can even bring your patients back as long as they don't reach 0 HP far away from you. Next, get Therapist in Training, so you can unlock Mannitol Maniac, which allows you to craft Mannitol Plus. And that's all for the perks I recommend. Be sure to give all of them a read and see what suits you best. Injector General is also a nice perk you should be able to unlock whenever you feel like it's something you need, as it's in the second row, so it's available after you get Adrenaline Pump. NT Surgery Plus adds a new surgical option. However, it is very dangerous, so be sure to perform this operation quickly, and only if you find it absolutely necessary. I am talking about a brain transplant. This requires the items Brain in a Jar and Artificial Brain, which can be crafted after unlocking the recipe under the talent Therapist in Training. Performing this operation requires the kit of your scalpel, hemostat, skin retractors, brain transplant scalpel, brain in a jar, and artificial brain. You must also have a defib ready and be ready to perform CPR if you are unable to use an autopulse, as this operation will almost certainly cause cardiac arrest and pulmonary arrest upon removal of the brain. Keep in mind this only works if the patient is below 100% neurotrauma. Since neurotrauma can go to 200%, do not remove the brain if it's at 100% damage or above. Also be sure to have thiamine on you, as always. Never forget the thiamine. Now that you have watched it, as you can see, I have removed the brain and placed it in the brain jar, and I have put the artificial brain into the patient. Keep in mind that the artificial brain does not substitute a real brain, so your patient will be left unable to move or speak. They are alive, but paralyzed. They will not gain any neurotrauma as long as the artificial brain is in them. And you can see that the brain damage of the real brain inside the jar is slowly recovering on its own. This is great if you're in a situation where you're wrestling with different kinds of organ damage. As you should know from my trauma episode, organ damage causes neurotrauma, and neurotrauma causes organ damage. Mannitol causes neurotrauma, but it of course causes organ damage. And as any experienced surgeon can tell you, dealing with both neurotrauma and organ damage can be a real nightmare. So this operation is a good idea only if the organ damage is high and you know lethal neurotrauma will soon be a threat. This is an extremely risky and niche surgery. Do not do this if you're new. Only consider this operation once you gain the experience and intuition to know when to do this. I recommend wiring a text box to your bed and hooking the wire to the neurotrauma output. That way any patient in or near the bed will have their neurotrauma displayed. One more use case is if the brain is about to reach a state of failure at 200% damage. If, in this case, an organ damage is too high to use mannitol, perform this operation. I told you before not to do this if the brain is above 100% damage, but that is if you have any intention on saving the brain. If you know the brain is gone and there's nothing you can do, take the brain out and let it be destroyed and quickly put in the artificial brain. This will allow you to cure organ damage without worrying about neurotrauma. Your patient will remain unconscious until you find a donor brain. And keep in mind to store donor brains in a brain jar. Let's go over the rest of the things this mod introduces, starting with medicine. First is Mannitol Plus. Mannitol Plus is a special version of mannitol that is expensive to craft but has all the positive effects of mannitol without the negative effects, which is very important for extreme scenario operations. The Mannitol Maniac talent is required to craft this medicine. Next is the experimental treatment, which is a drug that can have a vast amount of random effects, mostly positive, but sometimes negative. Crafting this requires the talent unethical sourcing. Keep in mind that you can only pick the Mannitol Maniac talent or the unethical sourcing talent. You can't have both. Due to the unpredictable nature of the experimental treatment, I highly recommend the Mannitol Maniac talent instead, but it's ultimately up to you to weigh the risks and benefits. You can read about the possible effects on the experimental treatment on the Trello board, which I will post in the description. Next is the triage cards. These are rather niche, and I would only worry about this if you're in more of a roleplay server, or you have a lot of people, including a medical officer, taking the role of emergency response. The triage card is made for scaling how injured someone is. There's 4 levels and 2 modes. First I'll cover automatic. Automatic triage cards are more useful for smaller servers and surgeons in training that are just starting out. It will automatically assign a color based on how hurt the patient is. First color is green, which means the patient is mostly okay. You should definitely check them out and stitch their boo-boos, but that's your last priority if you have other patients. Yellow means the patient is mostly okay and will last, but their condition could become worse or even lethal if left alone for too long. Red means emergency. Attend to this patient immediately, or they will quickly die. You have a chance to save them, but they require immediate attention. Black means the patient will soon die. Chance to revive them without extreme experience and the talent Don't Die on Me Soldier is near impossible, so if you're new, don't have the talents and the equipment, there's nothing you can do for these patients. Next I'll explain how to use triage cards manually. Only worry about this if you have a medical officer whose job is to relay the condition of patients to you. For that situation, to tag a patient as green, attach the card to their leg. For yellow, put it on the arm, the torso for red, and the head for black. Finally, the Medical Misconduct Book. This item, upon being read by holding down right-click with the selected in your hotbar, will provide 8 points of surgical skill and 2 points of medical skill. If surgical skill is disabled, it will provide 8 points of medical skill. Definitely read these when you get them. When you can no longer gain skill from these, pass them on as you get them to a medical officer if you have one. Then assistants after that, as they're the next best flexible option if you feel like training an assistant to help you out. And if you want to give them to the rest of your teammates, as it doesn't hurt for the rest of your team to be able to suture their own wounds, tourniquet their arterial bleeding on their limbs, and perform CPR if there's no way for them to receive immediate attention. If nothing else, you can deconstruct them for a little carbon. That's it for this guide to NT Surgery Plus. If this helped, consider liking if you want. If you have any questions at all, leave them in the comments and I'll be happy to help you as soon as possible. I apologize for this taking so long. My life is in a stage where I kind of have to get my crap together and I've had a lot to do. So again, I'm really sorry about how long this has been taking me to do. More guides are on the way soon. Stay tuned for NT Cybernetics and NT Pharmacy. Remember to sign my petition to make mannitol the new base for baby formula, and never trust people selling things from inside their comically long coats. Happy sailing, and I'll see you next time.